I know that the France versus England rivalry goes back centuries, and it goes both ways. And sometimes the French can be as weird and unpleasant about the British as the British can about the French. We know there's a long, complicated history, and as I said, it works both ways. So I'm not just sort of, although I'm a Francophile, I adore the French and France. I'm not being one-sided about this and just defending the French and sympathising with the French. But I certainly think with the migrant crisis in Calais, we really do need to be being nicer to each other, us and France, and working together more and extending the hand of friendship to each other more and understanding each other's position more rather than just passing the buck, just passing the blame backwards and forwards and, and hating on each other and having a go at each other. Because let's face it, in many ways, Britain and France are faced with the same troubles. Obviously, there are differences, but Britain and France have both got real big difficulty with the migrant crisis and both struggling, both obviously wanting to pass it on to each other. No, we don't want them, you can have them. No, we don't want them, you can have them. So we're paying you to stop them from coming over to the UK. Well, fair enough. I do want to know what exactly is being done with that money that I assume was paid to central government in Paris and then allocated to the authorities in Calais, I suppose, or around that part of France, the police, the council there, the authorities. But I would like to know exactly how that money is being divvied up and what they're doing with it. Because although I adore the French, there is some things that are not clear about that and things that don't add up. And it's difficult to get any answers, but I would like to better understand what they're doing with that money that we're sending. But, to a larger extent, we're both faced with similar difficulties and we should be working together and being nicer to each other instead of looking down on each other like the British and the French have often always done. Having said that, I've got lots of lovely French friends and I find, many French people are fine with the UK and, very understanding of our issues and very nice about us. It's not all French, the same as it's not all British, but we really do need to get our act together and start being kinder to each other, Britain and France, because we're both, in many ways, in this together. There are migrants in other parts of France in hotels. The French have got migrants in hotels in other parts of France, and they are having a difficult time with it. Some parts of the Mediterranean city of Marseille are now almost like a third world country. They're just overwhelmed with the amount of migrants that are coming over the border from Italy. So Marseille, in the Mediterranean, not far from the Italian border, for example, is in a bad way, and Paris is in a bad way with migrants camped out and, illegals, problems with illegals. So, the French are struggling as well, and the French do help migrants. I mean, they do get something in France. The British always say they don't get anything in France. Well, the ones that are in Calais, they want to come to the UK. They're single-minded about coming to Britain. They do not want to be in France. But in other parts of France, there are migrants who are happy to stay in France and want to stay in France, and they're in hotels. In other parts of France, the French do put migrants in hotels, not in the Calais area, but in other parts of France, they do. I have a French friend in Chartres, 60 miles south of Paris, who used to work in a centre where there were migrants, and she said they get everything. Now, so the point I'm making is it's not that the French don't do anything, and the ones that are in Calais, in that area, they want to come over here. They don't want to be in France. They want to come here, and they're single-minded about it. Whereas in other parts of France, there are migrants that want to be in France. Paris is in a terrible state now with it. But the reporting, just to get onto the reporting, just see how much time I've got left. Oh, already 5 minutes. the reporting, particularly on GB News, has not impressed me at all, from Calais and Dunkirk and Boulogne and those areas, because they seem to talk about the French as if they're our enemies, as if they don't like us, as if they're inferior to us, as if they're stupid. I don't like this. We need to be working together. I don't like this tone, this attitude. And they didn't speak to a single Patrick Christys, who I have a lot of respect for. Patrick Christys on GB News. I'm a big fan of GB News, and I've got a lot of respect for Patrick Christys. But he spent some time in Calais a couple of days ago. A couple of weeks ago. He spent the day in Calais, talking to migrants and going around the migrant camps, and in that whole day, there was a 2-hour show on GB News, and he's very talented. I like Patrick Christys, but he didn't speak to a single French resident. He was there for a whole day in France, didn't speak to a single French resident about how they feel about the situation, how they feel about the UK, what they're going through over there. He didn't speak to a single person from the French authorities, from the police to the town hall in Calais. Didn't speak to a single official, which to me seemed like a big gap in the journalism. Not to speak to a single French person when you're in France. They've got opinions, things to say about this. They've got a point of view to give, and not one single French person, as far as I know, was spoken to. It was all either British people or migrants, and he was in Calais and around Calais in France. What about the French point of view? What about interviewing French officials, politicians, local politicians, councillors, the police? Now, as I said before, I really want to know exactly how this money is being divvied up. I've spent a lot of time in France. I speak French. I've been fortunate to appear on a few radio and TV shows in France, speaking French, and I follow French current affairs very, very closely. But there's some ambiguity about what's happening with this money that we're sending, because we don't seem to be getting much back for that money. And although I love the French, I want to say that this is not good. It's not clear. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. How this money's been spent. Has it been spent on other things? Why are we not getting what we should be getting for that money? I know the French have got their difficulties as well, and their point of view, which I think should be considered and listened to and featured more on the news. But still, that is not good, or it seems to be not good. So we need to get to the bottom of that and research what's going on there. Excuse me. I've got a frog in my throat. No French jokes, please. But yeah, Patrick Christys didn't speak to a single French official or no one from the council, no politicians, no local residents about this migrant situation to get their side of it, how they feel. And seeing as he was in France for a day or two, this seems really, really odd. And there's some gaps in the journalism there. And Ben Leo, not impressed. Ben Leo of GB News. I'm a big fan of GB News, but I'm not impressed with Ben Leo. He was in Boulogne the other day, near Calais and around that area, on the French coast there, trying to find out why migrants were not being stopped, but a French fishing boat had been seized by the port authorities in the north of France there, near Calais and Boulogne. And he was sort of laughing at the fact that the French don't work Sunday, so he couldn't easily get to speak to somebody. Sort of making fun of the French. I know the French can be funny and unpleasant about us as well, some French people. And I know it goes back centuries and there's this rivalry and weirdness between the French and the English, but still, this is not helpful or conducive when when both countries are trying to deal with such a difficult situation, a critical, catastrophic situation. We should be working together and being nicer to each other, not mocking each other and criticizing each other and passing the buck, passing the blame all the time. Ben Leo, first of all, was there no preparation or research done? Why was it a surprise to Ben Leo that he might not be able to speak to anybody on a Sunday, in the authorities? Why was that a surprise? And why was he making fun of that? Why were they laughing at the fact the French don't work Sundays? Is that so strange or weird or bad? Um, as I said, I know we need to know what's happening with this money, and I'm not just blindly praising the French. There are issues with the French, and the French can be rude and unpleasant about us as well. So, although I'm a big Francophile, I'm not blindly just worshipping the French. But we don't try to in the news. We don't try and see things from their side. We don't talk to people properly over there. Get their side of things. The residents, the authorities. They're looking after their own interests. Yes, so are we. We're looking after our own interests, and so are they. Yes, we're passing the blame. They're passing the blame back. Passing the problem to us, and we're passing it back to them. That's what countries are likely to do. But we need to cooperate and be friendlier with each other, talk to each other better. Not, it sounded like some of these reporters, they sound like they're looking down on the French, and constantly just automatically viewing the French as not our friends and our enemies. Well, I've got some wonderful friends in France. There are lots of French people that are fine with the British. And as I said, they've got many of the same issues and struggles and problems as we've got. But just to conclude, I made a complaint to GB News. This really, really, really irritated me. Ben Leo, I mean, there doesn't seem to be much research done because he didn't speak a word of French, even a basic greeting, which you can look up on your phone in 1 minute and read it off your phone screen. But I'm sure Ben Leo knows how to say hello or good day in French. Not even a greeting. He just went in, spoke to these officials in Boulogne at the port, went straight in English, didn't even say hello, good day, sir, or how are you. Very, very easy, basic things he could have looked up on his phone. But I'm sure he knows anyway from school. Or most people know how to say bonjour or bonjour, monsieur, in French. But he didn't even do that. He just spoke in English straight away, assuming they would understand. And where's the preparation? Where's the respect? I mean, I see some real gaps in this reporting in Calais on this issue, and the way that we talk about the French and the way we deal with the French. I see some real gaps in the journalism here. Why did he not even manage to prepare or use a basic greeting? When you're in another country, you master a couple of basic phrases. How to say hello, how to say thank you, how to say please. Very easy, basic phrases when you go to a country. It's just respect. Not even a hello, not even a how are you, not even a greeting in French. And he's in their country, addressing people, just going straight in English. And, as I said, there is this tone of looking down on them or making the French out to be strange. There's no, it's very shallow journalism, very almost sort of, childish, really. No attempt to get their side of things or understand them. And as I said, Patrick Christys, who I admire a lot and like a lot, he didn't even speak to a single French person in a whole 2-hour show, a whole day when he was in Calais a couple of weeks ago. Not a single French person, as far as I'm aware, in that area was spoken to, and yet he's in France and surrounded by, thousands of French people who have opinions, things to say. They're affected by this, like we are. I'm not impressed with the reporting in Calais and Boulogne on the migrant crisis in France. Even if I am a big fan of GB News and a big fan of Patrick Christys, they do need to do some work on this. This is not some preparation as well. Not happy with this. A bit more friendship and a bit more respect between the English and the French would be good. Mastering a basic greeting, saying hello in the local language, which he could have looked up on his phone. Don't just go and speak to people in English, and don't, sort of look down on them and think you're superior. It's not good. So the French and the English need to get their act together and work together more and understand each other more and be friendlier. because this is a critical, catastrophic situation with the migrant crisis, and we're both affected, and we both need to be working together on this. So, yeah, big fan of GB News, but not impressed with their reporting on the migrant crisis and their reporting in France generally. Not at all.